raw cannabinoids, or cannabinoids that are not yet decarboxylated, have a lot of medicinal value. Now, what are raw cannabinoids? Essentially, raw cannabinoids are cannabinoids that are not yet decarboxylated through heat or combustion. So when we find the cannabis plant and nobody's lit it on fire, it hasn't been smoked yet, nobody's heated it, the cannabinoids in the plant are in their raw or acidic state still. It's when we smoke cannabis, combust it, heat it through a processing method, that it goes through a chemical process to become the cannabinoids we know and love. For example, in the raw cannabis plant, you will have the acidic form of THC. This is called THCA. The little a stands for acidic. And when THCA is combusted or heated, it becomes THC. This is the cannabinoid that we know and love for its intoxicating effects. Similarly, CBD, before it's been decarboxylated, is CBDa. So to bring this home, raw cannabinoids are the cannabinoids present in the plant before they have been heated. But sometimes we actually want to consume the raw cannabinoids because they do have these medicinal effects. If you do want to create a kitchen infusion at home without the decarboxylation process in an effort to preserve the raw cannabinoids, this is something that you can do. It just follows a slightly different method than most of the cannabis oil or butter infusion methods. And so I wanted to kind of give a quick overview of how you could do this. I recently, like within the last couple of weeks, created an oil infusion in my kitchen meant to preserve the acidic form of CBD. So I made this infusion with the intention of making the primary active ingredient CBDa. And I was able to do this using a method called the cold press method. It's called cold press because along the infusion journey, you are not heating the preparation enough to actually carboxylate those cannabinoids. So if you began with CBD flower, technically in its flower or raw form, that plant is filled with CBDa, not CBD yet. If you were to heat that CBD flower, decarboxylate it, and then create an oil infusion, that's where you would get true CBD oil. But what you can actually do is if you go through an oil infusion process that does not include any heat, then you end up with CBDa oil. And that is what I have made following the cold press method. If you're interested in this and this is striking your fancy, I want to give you a little more information before I sign off today. I'm definitely going to do a more curated video in my kitchen soon, talking about the cold press method and making raw cannabinoid infusions in your own kitchen. So what was entailed in the cold press method? Essentially, you're using alcohol as the extract to be able to pull the raw cannabinoids from the cannabis plant. And so what this looked like is I ground some flour. I started in this case with a CBD flour that at that point was technically very rich in CBDa, the raw cannabinoid version of CBD. At that point, I ground it up, I just put it in a coffee grinder, and I put this into a French press. I have a French press set aside for cannabis preparations, so I don't mix it up with the one that I use for daily coffee intake. Into that cold press, over the cannabis flower, I then poured high-proof grain alcohol. Now, the alcohol is meant, again, to extract the cannabinoids from the plant, allowing you to then further distill that down and get a cannabinoid-rich oil. I'm not a drinker. I tend to avoid alcohol, but don't worry. In the next step, you're actually going to let the alcohol evaporate off. So once you have this solution that is essentially grain alcohol mixed with CBD flour, you are going to pour that into a plate or a flat pan and leave it out overnight. The intention is to have a lot of surface area because you're going to want that alcohol to evaporate off of your oil. You want to wake up in the morning and have the alcohol evaporated off so that what you're left with is literally just the raw cannabinoids and some of the original constituents of that plant. It's pretty amazing. You might not think it happens that quickly, but wake up in the morning, double check that your alcohol is evaporated off. And what you should see is kind of a dark browny film on your plate or pan. From there, you're just gonna wanna kind of collect it. It's gonna be sticky and resiny, just cannabinoids are pretty sticky. But if you can slowly kind of work some oil into it, I ended up using coconut oil for mine, placing a little bit of oil over it and scraping a little bit with a spoon or a spatula. Remember that you don't really want to heat this up, because through heating your oil, you are going to create that chemical reaction that turns it into a different cannabinoid. So in an effort to preserve the raw version of the cannabinoid, you're not going to heat it, or if you are doing a really low level heat source. Sometimes there are heating pads that you can plug in, and it provides a really mild and well dispersed heat. Or you can even just heat it sometimes with your hand. Or if you really wanted to, you could heat up like a burner on your stove and hold the plate or pot or pan or whatever your cannabinoids are on above it. So then you simply incorporate the oil into the cannabinoids, collect it. It's definitely going to be easier to convey when I do a video in my kitchen, but I did want to share that that's the method that I used to create my oil. And so just in case you want to get started on this wellness kick right away, hopefully this video has empowered you to understand that it is possible to create raw cannabinoid-based oils in your own kitchen. You might have the materials in your house already to do this, and empowers you with some keywords and phrases to look up on YouTube, i.e. cold press method, to actually be able to do this at home. Anyway, hope that helps. Like I said, I'll be back with another video on this soon. I am certainly not done with my exploration of raw cannabinoids. Have a great day. Take care.